Welcome to Nightlight, everybody. Step away from the mainstream and gather around as we enlighten the world and our realities and travel this cosmic journey we all call life. Join us as we share with you and provide that beacon that can guide us all to a better way. Explore with us as we examine a metaphysical montage of spiritual insights covering everything from the mundane to the magical, UFOs to unicorns, and everything in between. This is Nightlight, a reminder that you are never alone. I am so excited tonight because we've got a very special lady on with us. We have Solaris BlueRaven. And she's an amazing lady, and I'm going to tell you a little bit about her background to let you know just how amazing she is. She's a published author, clairvoyant, remote viewer, public speaker, and MT healer with a professional background in covert projects and metaphysical sciences. She is the author of Goddess Ascending, a monthly newsletter pertaining to ascension and planetary shifts and changes. She's a practitioner of the craft, a professional writer with several books on covert technology and psychotronic warfare. You can get her books on Amazon or Author House Books. Her books include one of my very favorite of all times, Transmutation through Ascension. I have wantonly used a great deal of this information in several classes I teach. It's a must-read for anybody who is on a spiritual journey. Eye of the Remote, Black Operations in Areas Beyond Area 52, Mr. Sun and the Halloween Ball, Programmed by Deception, Eye of the Remote series. That's a really good series as well. And her latest, 1 Million Miles Till Midnight, which is just now available, I think. It's an amazing book. It's one that's going to make you think. And I strongly advise you not to try to read it in one fell swoop, but to take it piecemeal because it has a lot of subtle information into it that will strike you as amazing. She also has a DVD documentary called Eye of the Remote, A Disclosure of Covert Technology, which is available on her website, Night Shadow Anomaly Detectives. She's a producer, director, and founder of Raven Star Films and Night Shadow Anomaly Detectives. So after all that, you wonder why she's even gifting us with her presence. Is because she's a very nice lady. Welcome, Solaris.
Well, hello, Barbara, and thank you for that lovely introduction.
Oh, I just have read 1 Million Miles Till Midnight for the third time. And
wow.
I gotta say, I have to tell you, it's a good read if you have no spiritual background at all. It's an even better read if you understand the subtleties behind everything. And it's a fascinating read if it also touches on predictions that I just made.
Interesting.
It's fascinating because I had one of my guests not show up, so I decided to just, read the universe. And one of the things that came out that I was fascinated with, and I'll even give you the month time frame it came out, and it was the July-August time frame. And I said during that time period, we were going to learn that our NASA stuff is all a facade, and that it was really covering up the fact that our scientists have been working on interdimensional travel for decades. And, the thought of traveling the stars in a tin can is just stupid. And that humanity seems to have thought that was a good idea, so they just kept the myth going, but that the reality is that all of our travel is going to be interdimensional and shifts that don't require a ship or anything. Mm-hmm. And that came out in your when I saw it in the book, I thought, holy mackerel. Thank God I did that prediction before I read that part of her book.
Well, that's great. Yeah, you're always spot on with your predictions too, by the way. You're very awesome with what you do. But yeah, that's very, very interesting. Yeah, isn't it interesting how mankind has created the facade to sleep everybody into this false matrix? But as you were saying, it's breaking down. It's going away. It's in the cells and atoms of our own design. So we can't escape who we really are as star people.
I agree. What was your incentive in writing this book? Because it is something more than just a simple little book. It's far more than that.
Well, I actually wrote it as a spin-off to my Eye of the Remote series because the technology I was interfaced with back in 2004 was about artificial telepathy and the covert program, which dealt with a lot of things based on artificial intelligence and the meaning behind the Eye of the Remote, which is this book, literally, because the program itself is about programming a target or basically interconnecting you into a sci-fi technology. But later on, as you start looking into the artificial intelligence program itself, the artificial intelligence, the symbiotic design work behind it has its own mission. And this spin-off is really the mission of this AI, which is really the ascended machine technology from what I saw through the Eye of the Remote. So I wrote it into this formula of 1 million miles till midnight. And it just started, when you're writing and all of a sudden it just rolls. And that's how it did. And I put it into a short story, but I knew that it had a very profound meaning and message behind it based on what we call ascended machine technology and also what's happening to this world and the fact that this world speaks another language that we don't even know, or you probably do, but most people don't pick up on the communication system from planet to planet. That there's something going on. It's a network, like trees communicate in the underground. So do planets, so do star systems. And yet mankind has created his own language, and he's separated himself from that stream. So this is what the book's about.
Well, that's why now your other book, which I truly, anyone on a spiritual journey should read, Transmutation Through Ascension, Soul of the Sun, because it gives you such a wonderful fundamental basis for everything. It's a great book, and I have stolen from it. Just absolutely.
Oh, I'm proud. I'm honored, actually. I have so much respect for you, Barbara. So for you to say something like that about my book, it means the world to me. Thank you.
Well, no, I really, I have a class that I teach, and I'm going to get a copy for each of the people in the class, because it is, you take it down to the very, very fundamental stuff, and you give people an understanding of basically, among other things, that you are God and you are the one that is responsible for your reality, basically.
Absolutely.
And so many people just don't get it. And the other book that I recommended was The Emerald Tablets by Dr. Doral, because he, of course, takes everything beyond the fundamentals that we're now going through. And one of the things in both books that I found was that you speak about the fact that consciousness does eventually take on its journey, that in many cases we're just a rider. Our consciousness is just a short-term passenger on this journey, and we will go beyond the religions, beyond the politics, beyond the physical reality, into a stream of consciousness that is linked to all of creation. And that's where we're flowing, and that's where our destiny pathway is eventually. And that humanity is, so often over history, you hear people talking about we're a master race, or we are, the most evolved, creatures in the universe, and it's just not true. And yet science fiction has given people ideas that, I think, to scare us away from reaching out.
I totally agree. Yeah, they've kind of disempowered the masses by all of the propaganda and their version of what they want to create in a reality. But you're right. I mean, it's really about who we really are as what I call celestial beings or star beings. But when we're merged with that beautiful source energy, that full light universe, I mean, that's who we really are. And I know you probably know this feeling of bliss and just being one with the universe, and that wonderful feeling that it's just the most loved feeling I can ever explain. And I've had that feeling, before I was pulled into the covert program. That's the energy I know. And that's why it's so significant, because most people, in my opinion, have been disempowered here. They've been lied to. They've been indoctrinated with false ideologies, false religions, false matrices. And you and I, and beings like us here in the station and beyond, I mean, we're waking people up, and just being a mirror to truth is huge.
Well, yeah, and it's like, it is a way. Your book, this 1 million miles till midnight, to me, it felt like you so subtly put things in here that someone, even thinking that they're reading just a piece of fiction, you're triggering stuff inside of them that is going to kind of seed their consciousness as to what if or could it be. And I think you brilliantly put it. And I I read it 3 times because it felt to me as though once just wasn't enough. You know, you have to go back and you have to understand, okay, there's another level here, and there's another level there, and then there's another level there, and then you're transferring over to the levels inside of yourself, which is brilliant. I don't know how you did it, but it was brilliantly done.
Well, thank you so much, and it means, like I said, it means the world to me to know that you read this even 3 times. And I actually was very pleased with this book, so I'm really glad to hear your feedback on it. And it is multi-layered. There's no doubt about it. And as I said, it was written in science fiction and the illusion of, but truly it's not science fiction. It's really about what's happening in between the spaces of consciousness, and also what has been created here on the timelines. Because these people who have been using these covert programs, they've been creating a spin-off reality in artificial intelligence, and most people are oblivious to it. And that's what I was trying to touch on as well, is that there's something behind the scenery here that's not necessarily their symbiotic intelligence, but there has been a lot of energy being put into these areas that most people don't even know about. So this is kind of a mirror to that. It's a mirror between the mirror and the lens is pretty much how I worded it. But I'm really, really pleased that you appreciated the book. It means, like I said, it means the world to me. And it is a short read. It's not super saturated, but it is complex.
Well, it's the kind of read you can do in an afternoon. It's not a real long book, but you read it, you put it down, and you think that's cool, and then before you realize what's happening, within a couple of days, you're saying, "Wait, let me go read that again." I think I may have missed something, and then and every now and then I would say, "Well, dang, I said that someplace, sometime," and especially with the fact that it feels as though we are going to suddenly be getting the information. I think what frightens me and confuses me at the same time is why do there have to be covert things going on? Why does the government have to not? I mean, our NASA program and everything, while fabulous, but they've been working on this interdimensional travel since before the space age. So I don't understand why they're hiding it.
Right. Well, I think they want to keep it to a specific group of people, like a privileged group of people, in my opinion, anyway. I know that the Masons were very much involved with a lot of the early NASA programs and some of the underlying information with esoteric teachings. But what they don't seem to factor in is that we are star people, that all of us are star people. And you take it to whatever level you want through consciousness, through your own spiritual work while you're here on the timeline. But nonetheless, we all have these beautiful gifts. I mean, we don't need to get into it, like you were talking about. We don't need to get into a little capsule somewhere and go fly to the universe and get close to creation. We already are part of creation. We're an extension of it. We get there through consciousness, and that's how we take quote unquote ET home, is through that consciousness and frequency, and also modulating and changing our DNA through higher consciousness. So I'd say a lot of it is control. It's about mass mind control to some degree, and entrainment, and also their breakaway society that they want to keep their own little world of superior, or the illusion of elite, which really they're not elite at all, but I think that's what they're trying to do. They're trying to create themselves as better than everyone else, as transhumanist gods to some degree, and they can do that through the artificial intelligence program. But that AI program that they create, it doesn't have consciousness or soul or spirit. It's a void. It's void of consciousness. It's void of things that are in the universe. And as long as mankind is creating it, it's only going to be a replication of him. It's not going to be a replication of the real multiverse out there.
Not only that, but something that and I forget which. It was definitely a spin-off of. Oh gosh, what was the movie where the artificial intelligence locked the guy out of the spaceship?
Oh, is it 2010 Space Odyssey?
Yeah. Well, there was something that came beyond that, and they had to turn the computer off. And he said, "Dave, will I dream?" And that, I think, is where the big division is, that artificial intelligence does not dream.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the difference between us and it, so to speak, that there is a consciousness that goes beyond the numbers, that we're outside of the numbers, that there is something beyond that. And I just, to me, I'm so, really confused to a degree, in that so many people aren't seeing the pathway that humanity is on at this point in time. And it blows my mind. And there is such an awakening taking place. There is such a download of information that everybody's getting. It's not for a select few. Everybody's getting it. And yet they're not getting it. A lot of
Right.
people are choosing to not acknowledge it.
That's exactly it. They're not choosing to step up to the higher frequencies to access the information. Yeah, that's very sad. And what you were touching on also with the artificial intelligence is immortality. We are immortal beings. We've had multiple lifetimes on and off planet, and we bring all this database with us. This particular artificial intelligence program doesn't have that. It doesn't have the lifetimes. It doesn't have the states of consciousness. It doesn't have immortality, or what I call the law of grace within it. So, and I can tell you, even when I was pulled into that program in 2004, it felt so encapsulating in a very empty place. It's very empty in spirit. That's the only way I can describe it. It's like something just encompasses you in steel, and you can't see your light. I don't like it, and this is one of the reasons I addressed the artificial intelligence, the way they misuse technology here on the timeline, and this is why I also morphed it into the book 1,000,000 Miles to Midnight. I transcended it, but yeah, it's unfortunate that people aren't paying attention, Barbara.
Well, I think the other thing is, we come into each lifetime with all of the information. We are our own hall of records. It's all there in our DNA. And the DNA can be triggered and awakened and turned on. And it's a matter of one, for the most part, people are looking externally for information and teaching that is carried within them that is specific to themselves. And as long as they're looking externally, they're not getting the important information they need to get.
So true. So well said. Absolutely. Yeah. We are the Hall of Records. That's really nice. That's a good way to say it. I mean, I know there's a false Akashic that mankind's created through all his lies and deception over the centuries, but that's not the one we tune into. We tune in the full light database, which has no censorship. And this is how we can identify what's going on here. There's certain things we know that we probably shouldn't even know, but because we have access to that multidimensional database, we're able to pull things in. And that's one thing I would love to see people do more and more each day is access that higher self, oversoul, superconscious, and all of that multiversal energy, so that they're able to see beyond this veil right now, because it's really consuming. I mean, this timeline, as you probably can tell, I mean, for me, I get wrapped up in it way too much. I need to break orbit with it because it's really my design to navigate at the higher frequencies, but I'm also a warrior, so I kind of navigate in and out of the spectrums. But yeah, I think people should really pay attention to their spiritual path right now on the timeline, and also what's out there in the cosmos.
Well, I totally agree. And there are so many roadblocks that are put in our way that are artificial roadblocks, but the biggest one I'm finding is the ego. And you do begin to wonder, how did the ego get so strong that it was able to poo-poo all of these wonderful spiritual thoughts? I mean, there are a lot of people that can put the ego aside or transcend the ego, whatever phraseology you want to use, but if you can let go of your ego for just a short period of time and embrace the love that is all around us constantly, you're a better person. And I, by having the ego kind of step back for a while, you don't lose your identity, you enhance it.
And yep, absolutely. Yeah.
I think that's what so many people don't understand, that toys and power and money and influence do not make you a more spiritual being.
No, actually, they disconnect to some degree. And you see a lot of people, and to me, it seems like they replace their ego for their higher selves, and it's a completely different component. What I would say is just let go, surrender to the streams of creation, and allow for, as you were saying, the love to embrace you, all these beautiful, beautiful energies that are constantly permeating this planet. But most people are tuned out, or maybe they're getting distracted, because a lot of it is, we're bombarded with a lot of man-made radio waves, and too many things that are manufactured that are causing interference in the electromagnetic field. So if you haven't done the spiritual work, or you're not working on your shielding, or any part of your light body, then yeah, it's going to be a little bit of a challenge for a lot of people. But I agree, they need to surrender the ego and let go of that, and they'll feel so much better energetically once they just let go.
Yeah, I was talking to a class, and I was saying, your ego is only of this lifetime, and somebody said, "Oh no, I'm taking it with me," and I said, "Okay, be my guest. I'm not going to tell you can't take it with you, but I am telling you that you probably won't when it comes time." But
right.
it's kind of like lifetime after lifetime. If we had the same ego, I think there would be a problem. I think the different lifetimes allow us to experience different input of different energies, of different situations, of different characteristics. If it was the same ego each time, it would be ridiculous.
I agree. Yeah, she's going to be in for a surprise when she transfers out, as we probably know. But you're an elder. You know that. I've told you this before. You're like one of the ancient ones. Your information is so wise, and I'd love to see you doing more work out there with lectures and speeches and whatever workshops. I mean, I'd love to see you out there touring because you have so much to bring to the plate on an energetic scale and on information wise. So, really mean that when I say that too. It's really important, Barbara, because you're very few people that I've met on the timeline that I consider to have a lot of wisdom.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. But I've also learned this lifetime through trial and error that you wait till you're called. And I made the mistake a long while back now that I thought I understood what the universe wanted me to do, and so I basically said, thanks, I'll take it from here. And I put a lot of money and a lot of effort into sending things out there and trying to make connections and things like that. And I found that everything fell flat on its face. So my new philosophy is, if I'm called, I answer the call. And, so far as I know, the phone lines, for readings and stuff, I certainly do those. But I think I'm at a place where a lot of people are at this point in time, where I know I should be doing something. I'm just not sure what it is. And until it calls to me, I have to be patient. And, I certainly, whenever anybody asks me to do a show, I do a show. Whenever, I have done some very unusual things these last few years, and we'll continue to. But it's sort of like, I once said to somebody who said I should be doing this work full time, and I said, well, I'm teaching full time, and I can't give that up, and the benefits and the money I need because I'm a single parent, but when I retire, if anybody's interested, I'll be out there, and if anybody asks, I'll give an answer. And he jumped on me and said, you don't understand, it's your journey that is the teaching tool, not the fact that you've arrived somewhere. Mm-hmm. And that, not that I'll give him credit for it, because I really didn't like him much, but it was wonderful advice. And
it certainly is.
And it's very, very true. And mm-hmm. So when I've done sermons and stuff like that, it's in a church or whatever, it's always, this is a mistake I made. This is the law that I went against. And, I'll explain it to you so that you can, not break that one, find one of your own. Mm-hmm. And so, yeah, I'm open to it, but right. Until it calls, you kind of sit and you do your thing, you do your radio show, and every now and then I get to have somebody like you on the show that I can actually talk to. And
likewise, it's great. Well, we're teachers, that's part of it. And you know what you strike me as also as a grail keeper. And what I mean by that is that you're you're like this wellspring of data, but it's almost like the Holy Spirit. It's like an enlightenment. In other words, it's like DNA activation with your teachings. And that's why I'm not sure if you've ever done attunements on people, but I think you'd do some phenomenal work if you were to attune people. Because what's happening, in my opinion, is people are looking for the grail. They're looking for it. And most of the time it's within. But with a grail keeper like you have all the components to attune people to the frequency of what they're looking for. And so that's just something I just wanted to put out there for you. But I get that really, really strong with you. So however you want to define it, or however it resonates with you, it definitely comes in really strong, though, the grail keeper.
Well, I appreciate that. Don't know quite how to take it. It's very flattering.
Well, it's real, and that's why I mentioned it, because it's I think you needed to hear that. So you just take it for what it is.
Well, I have found that it's really funny. I did a pendulum workshop the other night. And I had 4 kids, and they were in their 20s, but they were kids, and they had their pendulums, and they wanted to play with them. And I looked at them, and I thought, oh my God, there's nothing I can give them. I said, you have to understand that you're touching into your own higher consciousness, not a spirit. And they looked at me and said, oh no, there's a spirit that operates the pendulum. And it was like, no, there's not. And, and it was like, do I really want to go down and it's not that you I pulled myself back as far as I could, and I helped them with, seeing the chakras and how they spun and stuff like that. But it was like, this is not where I need to be, but I'm not sure where I need to be.
Advanced course is where you need to be, not with the kids. That's for like beginner 101. And you're right, because if they're into that and they say, oh, it's a spirit in there, they have to be careful because that's where you get the entities, and you have to clear those out because you want clarity through your higher self over soul superconscious. And well, we know that because that's where we come from. We studied on the path for a long time, but a lot of these people don't. But I would say you need to be teaching advanced courses, not the beginners. Leave that for somebody else. That's just
Well, a couple of years ago, gosh, and I can't remember. I don't. Maybe Deb can remember. I did a spiritual development circle online on Blog Talk Radio, and I had like 60 some people signed up in all, and I thought it would be a wonderful back and forth talking, and I found that most of the people were practitioners, so I thought, yay. This is a place where we can really go back and forth and learn from each other. And it ended up, I did 15 weeks of lecture. And it was to me an awakening for sure that a lot of the practitioners out there today don't have the foundations of the fundamentals of spirituality. And that shocked me tremendously.
I totally agree. That's why I say that you're like one of the advanced teachers out here, because it's true. Yeah, I see it all the time. I see a lot of people that don't have the components, and it shows by their work or their teachings or their healings or whatever else they're doing. But it's unfortunate. And the one thing that I've noticed is that people are seeking. They're constantly seeking some kind of spiritual guidance or something to help them, shield them psychically, empower them energetically. But as you were touching on earlier, the biggest component is that we have the power within. We just have to go in and access that power and bring it forth, and also raise our vibration. And the one thing that I've always talked about too is that we have a lot of interference from technological interference coming from radio waves and what I've talked about with the scalers and everything else. So, but I think that there's a huge purpose for beings like you here on the timeline. And, I don't want to be sucked away in just doing radio either, because this isn't really what I'm supposed to be doing. I mean, I'm doing it, but I'm actually a teacher too. So I don't know how I even got into radio, to be honest with you. I'm trying to remember, I think it was just Lorian pulled me into it or something. I don't even remember, I just got tired of being interviewed. So I decided I wanted to interview people, and then I just started doing it. So, but we are teachers, and I think maybe our presence on the airwaves is a big deal, because that energy, that intent, that truth, that spirituality does radiate.
Oh, I totally agree. I know there was a time way back where I got to thinking about and looking at, I think it was the pyramids that did it to me. Excuse me. I looked and I said, okay, these pyramids are 2,000, 3,000 years old. They were left as a monument to talk to history, to talk of history, to remind people of history. And I looked around and I thought, when you look at our society today in 2,000 years, none of it, hold on a second, I have a cat that just walked across my.
Oh, how funny.
Yeah, no, she walked across the and she turned my volume way down. All right, I'm back. I looked around and all I could see was that everything around me was in 2,000 years would be dust. It wouldn't be here. And the only thing that I saw that I thought might survive 2,000 years was Mount Rushmore. And it was like, oh my God, there is no legacy that this generation is leaving to the generations that are yet to come.
So true.
But then I realized that we have these wonderful radio waves that are put out there that will be there forever. So in a way, our legacy is not carved in stone, but it is a vibrational energy that floats out there in space. And 5 million years from now, somebody tuning into that level of consciousness is going to listen to this radio show.
Mm-hmm. Very true. Yeah, that's well said.
So that we are leaving a legacy. Horrifyingly, some of our music doesn't speak to the evolution of the soul, but
true.
hopefully, hopefully. So the other stuff is there too, but it's sort of like we've come to a period in time where things are destroyed and other things are built upon them. Look at the mounds. Look at the pyramids, for Christ's sake. I mean, they took the shielding off the Great Pyramid and they built. They covered some of the stuff in Cairo with it. It had hieroglyphs on the outside of it, and they've been lost to time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
You know,
All of that data, and I think a lot of it actually is stored once again in our cells and our atoms. And you touched on the halls of Amante, if I'm not mistaken, or the emerald tablets, and that's
yeah,
very profound. I mean, very powerful.
it is, and I wonder, why people haven't been looking at that information, questioning it, taking, it's absorbing it. I talk to people all the time and say that, religion is fine and wonderful, and there's nothing wrong with having a religious belief and practicing it. However, consciousness goes beyond religion,
Mm-hmm.
and so look at the emerald tablets. It goes beyond it doesn't in any way say you aren't entitled to have this belief system, but stretch the belief system.
Exactly.
Have what you need for comfort and for solace and everything, but understand that the spirit that you're carrying within the avatar of this human body has seen more and done more and experienced more than you could ever imagine, and is thirsty and hungry for more information that it can relate to and help you to ascend into.
Mm-hmm. Well said indeed. Yeah, that's so true. And this is what concerns me the most is that people are so lost and displaced right now because they're caught in this false matrix, the lie, that the deception program that's been going on. But yeah, it's true. I mean, that's why I touched on the Grail aspect, because it's people are searching for that component that's going to help them progress and go beyond, because the spirit does need to keep going and evolving and ascending. And the whole idea behind what we're doing here is about ascension to the highest level. And I know we're getting through the ascension, but I also know there's some things that have been rifting it as well. So but beings like us, we're pretty strong. I mean, we're very, very fortified. But yeah, when you think about the our benchmarks that were left behind, all these things that we left behind as reminders to our spirit of our previous civilizations or the beings that were here, I think that's huge. And if people could see that, it's like that's a mirror, that's a reflection, and people should really start paying attention to that. But yeah, everything has been gutted, so to speak, too. You see a lot of things that have been disrespected, which is a shame.
Well, I think what scares me the most is that science, when they don't understand something, they either ignore it or they make up a fable about it and tuck it into that's a make-believe, don't pay attention to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, look at the Nazca lines. There is some sort of medical anomaly at underneath that huge field there that in some way affects all sorts of magnetic stuff, but they haven't dug down to see what's there. I don't know why, but they haven't. And or if they have, we're not privy to the information. And I think that's what makes me so angry.
I think that's what it is.
There is so much that we don't have an understanding of. Look at the Bosnia pyramids. There has to be something there. They say there are tunnels there, but they don't say what they're for or where they go. And they've been working on this for a long time.
Right, and we do have the ground penetrating radar, so I'm pretty sure that there have been the black sciences that have gone through just about every area on the map on this planet in the illusion of. I'm pretty sure that they have. And even Antarctica, I'm hearing all sorts of stories about Antarctica, and I can't confirm what's really going on out there, other than the fact that there's definitely something that we should be aware of as a civilization, all of us, not just a few. So
yeah, I've read a lot of articles on the fact that the Antarctic pyramids are just rock formations, and then there's nothing to them. They're not really pyramids, and yet when you take a look at them, yes, they are.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot more there. Yeah, I mean, there was a reason they had that big war too with Admiral Byrd. So,
oh, geez, yeah.
When they got their butts kicked. So, from what I understand, there were ships coming out of the sea. So you explain that to me. Riddle to me this. And this is what I mean. Where is our history? Where is our galactic history, Barbara?
Wasn't he told you that not to say anything anymore, and his journals were kind of confiscated and locked up?
That's right. That's how it's been ever since.
Yeah, why is it, I wonder, that people that are trying to tell the truth are usually driven insane or killed?
Yeah, it's about power and control. I'll tell you, they're almost like they're almost like psychotic with power at this point in the continuum. It's like they have all these ancient artifacts that they've reverse engineered, and then they want to be God. They want to play God. I remember that movie, what is it, Raiders of the Lost Ark, when they're going crazy. They're just
Oh
completely
yeah.
obsessed with the power, but they can't hold the vibration of light, and instead they become corrupted and evil. And I think that's what's happened. I mean, you and I, beings like us, are pillars of light. We can hold and anchor that energy. We don't become corrupted. These people do. So it's really sad that they were seeing this, and I'm hoping that these veils, as they thin and as we start tearing down all this stuff, or these false matrices, that we can actually start seeing what's really happening, and that this will all come to surface so we can really see our galactic heritage without someone's version of it, without somebody censoring it and saying, because if you leave it up to these people and the illusion of these one percenters, they'll come up with their own storyline about the galactic codes or what's out there, or how they acquired whatever craft. We can't trust them. We have to go by our higher self, over soul, and the celestials that we work with.
Well, and that's what gets to me. And I do think that a lot of the people who are in power now and keeping the truth from us don't know what the truth is that they're keeping from us. They just know that they have to keep us dumbed down.
Mm-hmm. And it's fear too,
Well, if I were in that place, I would want to know, it just doesn't make any sense to me to not inform the population, because to be honest with you, if everyone really was quote unquote awakened, these large corporations, the corporations would disappear in a heartbeat. And that was one of the other things I saw. I saw the dissolution, dissolving of large corporations into smaller companies so that they could be policed. And
wow.
It just, to me, it was like, and large corporations like big pharma, like the large, like not Hess, like the the ammunition people, the House of K. Who was the big munitions dealer during World War II?
Oh, I'm not sure. Which one? Talking here in the U.S.?
No, I'm talking in Germany.
Oh, okay. That's a good test.
The name is just gone. But Krupp.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Okay.
Like the very, very big corporations. And when I say corporations, everybody was saying, oh well, there goes the Clinton Foundation, and all I could think of is that is the smallest of the small. I'm not even concerned with that one. That's going to fall apart on its own most probably. But I'm talking the large ones. They're going to be broken up into smaller ones so that they can't take advantage, and especially big pharma. I mean, what they're doing with the stuff for diabetes is just criminal.
Right. Well, and also the fact that we even have to rely on big pharma, period, because if we worked with the frequencies that we are familiar with as ancient beings, then we would actually have no illness here. If we had healing centers and ascension centers with frequency treatment, everybody would be fine.
That was the other thing that came up in I think it was the last show that somebody did up for. That was the other thing that came out that I was so fascinated with, that we were going to, and this was again summer into early fall, that it was going to be discovered that with first of all, that there were cures for most of the major illnesses out there that were just being held back because they wanted to control the population or whatever. But the other thing that came up that fascinated me really was that we were going to be going back to natural cures, because a medication made out of a natural essence had the element of life in it, and if something was synthesized, it did not have that spark of life in it from a living aspect, plant or something, and those cures that were synthesized didn't work, but the natural homeopathic ones did.
Absolutely true. Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's consciousness, universal life force energy, whatever you want to call it. That's the whole idea. We're living beings. We need the prana, and so do the plants and all these other life forms. So Yeah, it makes perfect sense to me, and I'd like to see all that GMO and all that garbage and everything else they've engineered, just throw it out because it's really about their transhumanism. They want to really just kind of wipe out the spirit, if you ask me, the spirit within, and just consume everybody with this entity-controlled hive collective. But it's not going to work the way they want it to. And what you were talking about with all these powers that be and the illusion of trying to control, manipulate us, well, I think a lot of it has to do with if we start going into our avatar consciousness, which is not about transhumanism, but really multidimensional design, we'll phase shift, we'll bilocate, we'll be able to go to different star systems and work with other beings. And they can't stop us with national security. They don't. This is one of the reasons, in my opinion, that I think that they're trying to stop anybody from accessing anything higher than their regular daily functions, because they're terrified of us phasing away and going someplace else. But that's our whole design work. We're supposed to be going home. We're not supposed to stick around here forever.
Well, gosh, no. But if we do that, then they are left with, nothing. They are left with the illusion of power and nobody to control.
Exactly, and that's terrifying to them. It's like playing with paper dolls. I don't think they can handle it. I really don't, and that's too bad for them because, but by universal law, that's how it's supposed to roll. They're not supposed to be doing what they're doing here. This is where the ego comes in. They're acting out a personal will to control, manipulate, and censor the masses to such an extent. I mean, to such an extent that they would murder people. That's horrible, or put a gag order on somebody. That's pretty desperate, if you ask me.
It is, but I do wonder what kind of there is I call it a plague when people feel they have to kill other people because that's what God wants them. And I'm not talking just the jihadists, because there are a whole bunch of Christian organizations out there that believe the same thing. So it feels to me as though people are I guess being manipulated or but I'm not sure it's really I guess it is manipulation of a sort. I don't feel that there's an organization doing it. I feel that there is a level of consciousness that is skewed or corrupted so that people feel they need to kill other people in order to justify their existence, which is, to me, I can't wrap myself around it, but that appears to be what's happening.
Yeah, I call it a brain virus myself, and I agree with you. I think it's entity control. I think that there's a hive collective that, once again, when you're merged with Source, or the full light universe, it's beyond Creator, it's beyond God, the terminology of God. It's such a beautiful, blissful, loving energy. It's not about murdering people that don't think like you or vibrate like you. It's about ascending and coexisting. And all of these people in these religious indoctrination programs have to get up, step up to the plate, and let go of their programming. Do you think they're going to do that, Barbara? This is the problem. They've been generation of being programmed into that reality, and it's going to be very hard for them to let go of it. So once again, entities, instead of embracing spirit and higher consciousness, they're bringing in entities. And the more you murder people, when you make a living out of harming people like that, you're creating a lot of ghosts. You're creating a lot of haunts in your own energetic field from multiple timelines. So, even people who've been in battlefields and military, they have ghosts. Whether they realize it or not, and they can ask for forgiveness, and that's fine. But I'm telling you point blank that that's a paradigm you don't want to screw with when you start messing with people's lives, because it can really come back and haunt them on so many levels.
Oh, and it can follow them lifetime to lifetime too. That's what's really horrifying.
That's the entanglement program, and it's like, well, this is what you did to me before. Now this is going to happen to you. It never ends. It's a cycle. It's like a snake eating its tail. Well, this is why we're here to break those cycles. We're trying to break those paradigms. But in order to do that, they have to be educated. They have to let go of their false programs. They have to embrace the full light universal programs, which is really just very simple. It's coexisting on a higher level of consciousness. Situation awareness. You don't have to love everybody, but just coexist with everybody. But it's going to take an awful lot of work from every person here. And as you can see with these religious indoctrinations, boy, they don't want to budge. And that's entity control. That's complete entity control right there.
Well, I have found that because it's so easy, people won't buy it. So we should make it really hard to get to the ascension process, instead of just accepting something, give it 4,200 steps. And that way, and charge a lot of money for it. And that way people will value it.
Well, that's kind of true. And you know what's interesting? It isn't easy to ascend. I mean, it really isn't, because people have to do the internal work. They have to clear out a lot of things on the subtle. You probably know all this, but the subtle energy field, emotional, mental, physical body, everything, karma matrix, you name it. You got to go through cycles and cycles and levels of yourself to peel away all these programs, even from a childhood or prior to a childhood before you even showed up here. I mean, there's things that people need to work out, and then they allow for more light as they keep ascending to higher levels, and their circuitry becomes aligned on the multidimensional, and your chakra systems start going online. So yeah, that's a lot of work. I don't really think a lot of people are going to do that, but you're right. At this point in the continuum, it's kind of like, yeah, do some workshops on Ascension. I was teaching Ascension too before I got pulled into that covert program. And I think one of the reasons I did get pulled into that program is because of the work I was doing, because it was off the charts. I mean, I didn't realize it at the time, because you're doing stuff and you just don't think. You think everybody else is doing the same thing. They weren't doing the same thing I was doing.
So. Well, that's the biggest issue here is when if somebody calls one of the shows and they ask, when am I going to get a relationship? And I say, well, you have a little more work to do. I get back, I've done all the work I need to do. I don't need to work on myself anymore. And the reality is, if you're asking that question, you're not done.
Correct. Yeah. And then, they can manifest it if they want it anyway. If they want a relationship, put it out to the universe.
Oh yeah, but we do create our reality by our perception of it, and it's sort of like, take a look at how you feel about yourself, and in those places where it's, well, I have to lose weight, or I'm not good enough yet, or whatever. Yes, you are. We're perfect. We're absolutely perfect. And if you can let go of those feelings of inadequacy, then you can feel, I'm perfect. You may not like me, but that's okay. It's like I feel really good and balanced, and I'm not saying that I'm done working on myself, because certainly it's a lifetime, chore. It's something that you're constantly working on. And if you're not constantly working on it, then there's something wrong, because if you were finished completing yourself, you would die and go to the next level.
Exactly. You'd be phasing in your light body and going to the next. Yeah, no, I agree with you on that one for sure. No, and it's about loving yourself. A lot of people get offended when I say that, that you really should love yourself. And it's true. Treat your body like a temple. Take care of yourself. Love your suit. Thank your suit, because it does. Oh my gosh, I put my body through hell just in martial arts alone training. So it's important to really respect the vehicle and what you're driving, and also loving yourself. And yeah, I totally agree with you. I think a lot of it is peer pressure, Barbara. I think a lot of people are very concerned about what others might think of them. And, I'm the type of personality that I don't even care about what people think of me in any form of dimensional space. So, but a lot of people do. And I think that has a lot to do with their self-esteem, and also how they think people will be perceiving them, perhaps, especially when it comes to relationships. So once again, you're right. It's about them really doing the work on themselves and letting go of those programs, because that's a program that's enabling them to think that way.
And a lot of these programs start from early childhood. That's, when you come into this lifetime, you're perfect, you're pure, you're a clean slate. And you have the awareness of a totally evolved spirit. And then as you grow, parents and teachers and the environment and all of the other things that you learn to live with, pour information into you that comes from just the earth plane, so that all of the spirit stuff kind of gets tramped down, and you have to unlearn what has been taught to you with love. Like, you have to have a career, and you have to make money, and you have to do this, and you have to celebrate your life. You have to celebrate your gifts, and then spirit takes care of you.
Very, very true. Yeah, I've always said the universe provides. Even in dark tides, even when you think there's nothing there around the corner, there's always infinite checkbook. In the multiverse has an infinite checkbook. I always say we all have an infinite checkbook. Everybody gets so worried about survival, but truly, we are such vast beings. If we really were to understand who we really were, and who we are as multidimensional beings, and also the essence of origin of the spirit behind it all, people would not have these insecurities.
Yeah, that's very true. And but and so how do you take someone who is in that position and try to convince them or help them to see that they have the power to make anything happen within their reality? I mean, there are a few things that I can probably say are off my list. I can't be Miss Teenage America anymore, but not that many. The possibilities are just limitless, and so many people take, getting older, a difficulty. And I will admit sometimes the body doesn't agree with you all the time, but we have the potential to do so much and so much good. And so, it's amazing how people start closing down as they get older. And, I'm 72. I'm going to be 73 in March. And I feel, the inside of me is still very, very young. The outside has a few wrinkles here and there, but the inside of me is so excited about the potential of things yet to come that it's unbelievable.
Yeah, and you sound very young, by the way. You do, energetically. Yeah, you can tell. And you know what? You're really just a kid in the illusion of space and time, because when you think we're beyond 26 billion years old in the illusion of, I mean, we've been around, we're ancient. So it's just an illusion. But yeah, that's very true. And actually, when you get to your age, every 10 years, it seems like I morph into something else on a higher level, or I hope that I'm growing and evolving at a very fast pace, that I keep learning and I become more and more wise each time, each year in the illusion of. So, and that's the one thing that I don't want to see is that erasure. I want to make sure that when I take this database, I bring it to the full light universe and I go home and I have the database with me if I want to access it later on. But I think the biggest thing people need to look at is, if they want their lives to change, they need to look and see what's causing them to be stagnant. Is it a relationship? Is it negative thought? Is it diet? Is it atmospheric conditions? Is it a job? I mean, there are so many things around people atmospherically, first of all, that I think can affect their reality. And also, they have to believe that they can change the reality. And I think a lot of people don't have that faith, that internal drive that says that they can really change their reality. They have to understand that they can work. And I think a lot of that has to do with just meditation, affirmations, practice. Just do it and it'll manifest. And you just keep doing it, and eventually it keeps permeating out. There's a resonance effect, and it will create itself.
Yeah, I think you just said something that resonated to me tremendously. I think, just as a homework assignment for anybody listening, is take a look at at pictures of yourself on the decadal level, and you'll see that almost every 10 years we do indeed reinvent ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was looking through a lot of pictures looking for something the other day, and I noticed that every 10 years there was a new me, there was a different me, there was a new element that seemed to be coming to the surface and saying, hey, look at me, not look at me, I'm this or that, but hey, pay attention, this is an element of the craft that you can now have access to. And I do feel that on a 10-year, on a decadal type scale, that we become more and more, we have more and more and greater access to the gifts that we've carried through time. And it's a matter of identifying them, using them, and sharing them with the people around us. I mean, I really believe that there's so much that we can share with each other that makes magic happen, makes our life more vibrantly alive, makes living so much more of a joyous celebration as opposed to a grind that we're surviving. Because if you're surviving life, you're missing the point of it.
Mm-hmm. I totally agree. Yeah, and at that point, you're seasoned. You have all the components, as you were saying, all the tools in your toolbox are nice and shiny and new, and so many different things have been incorporated. What I'd like to see more and more, what comes to mind is actually getting spiritual communities together to a point where people just network, even if it's having like a coffee shop and people connecting at a coffee shop talking spirit for an hour and a half or whatever. I really think people need to start communicating again and looking at each other in the eyes. I really think that people need to take themselves out of this crazy spectrum that's been going on here with this propaganda that's been going on the timeline, and just starting to communicate again, learning how to communicate through spirit, through the soul, through consciousness. I think that's a really big deal. I think people have lost that along the way somewhere. And unfortunately, the iPhone doesn't replace consciousness. It doesn't replace spirit or soul.
Yeah, I think that's one of the main problems today, is that technology has taken away the one-on-one, the group consciousness type things. I mean, I used to have a meditation group. I did it for 17 years. People don't do that. Oh, it was so cool. It really was. But and I keep thinking, okay, so I mean, there was Mr. Rowe did a round table the other day that had 22 people in it. It would be
Yeah.
great. It would be great to have 22 practitioners together so that we could talk about the spirit and the way things are, just how what I've noticed, what you've noticed,
Mm-hmm.
the new things out there. But texting and all of that has taken away from the one-on-one, and I hate it.
Mm-hmm.
Every year, once or twice a year, if I can remember it, I sit down and I actually write my son a letter, not an email, a letter. I write it in handwriting on paper and I mail it to him because that's a lost art. We're losing things that were in art form, in you know in and we're doing technology shorthand instead that doesn't convey what the heart, what the spirit, what the soul wants to say to another human being. You
Mm-hmm.
know, love you, a heart and a you. No, that doesn't say it. Why do you
Right.
love me? I mean, we're losing a part of our humanity
I
by
do. Yeah.
becoming so technologically involved.
I agree. And how often do you see people really give genuine hugs anymore? I used to be a real hugger, and I don't hug anybody hardly anymore. But I don't see many people either. But nonetheless, it's like that the whole genuine exchange of energy is really kind of becoming obsolete, and that's a shame. And I'd like to see that resurrected. You were talking about that. I would love to have that, Barbara. If you ever decide to do a radio show, or you want to do something where we do something like a Council of Light, and we just have a bunch of healing practitioners, I would be one for doing that. So.
Okay, well, we'll talk about that and hopefully enlighten you that it. So back to Solaris because this is fun. So, um, yeah, it would be fun to put something like that out there, um, to help people to kind of give them help, inspiration, information. It feels like it would be a very educational and enlightening type of programming. What did you have in mind?
Yeah, something to that effect, almost like a brainstorming. When you have like a council of light comes to mind, where you have practitioners, teachers, spiritual, those on the path of spirit, but actually in communication insofar as issues of the timeline, things to work on. Perhaps, I used to do a lot of grid running. You said you had groups and meditation groups. And that's interesting because I used to do something similar, which we used to do. We ran the grid. We would run a grid of light onto the world, and we would focus on certain areas on the map that needed more energy, and we would send the light there and healing. So it's very interesting that you mentioned that, but I just see that we have all these beautiful beings and minds out there who are capable of so many things, and it would be nice to create that network where we can actually exchange or have a counselor or a round table of some kind where we can converse and share data.
I'm all for it. I would be
Mhm.
happy to do that with you. I tried to do it alone and I found all I did was lecture. So having someone else I could talk to would be nice.
Oh, I'm happy to do that. Yeah, perhaps we can coordinate something and think about how we want to formulate it. But yeah, I just think this would be a good timeline to do it, actually, if you ask me, and so far as what's happening here, because a lot of us get too wrapped up and diverted into energies we don't need to be absorbing. Otherwise, we're not really doing what we're here to do, in my opinion. So,
I definitely agree with you. I think I know there are a lot of the midnight to 2 spots open on Revolution Radio.
oh,
Um,
nice.
I forget which studio, but probably B. Um, B seems to be the second child here,
Hmm.
obviously. But yeah, I think it would be a lot of fun. I do feel that we'll have to talk about this because it's something I would stay up till 2 in the morning to do.
Oh yeah,
Um,
absolutely. Because it's more invigorating too when you're talking about things that are, in my opinion, much more positive than some of the stuff that we can talk about in regular roundtables. So, I get
yep.
tired of talking about what I see on the timeline. I'd much rather go into the areas where I'm really, that's my area. The path of spirit and consciousness and teaching and healing, and yeah, much more productive.
Well, it's funny. That was the purpose of Nightlight to begin with. It was to be, somebody said what a dumb, name, and I said, yeah, but wait, I envisioned as Nightlight being exactly that. A light in the darkness that helped people to find their way to the bathroom or to enlightenment, whichever was most important at that time.
I
So
love your name, Nightlight. I love that name. I think it's so warm and loving. It's cozy, and I always thought that was a wonderful name for a show.
it was. I don't even know how it happened, but I started doing Nightlight 8 years ago. And so this is, I think, my 9th year doing it. Not
Wow.
here. I was on Blog Talk for a long time, and actually I'm still on Blog Talk. I still do Blog Talk shows as well.
Hmm.
So it's kind of, the Blog Talk venue is a cool one, but the audience wasn't that large. Freedom Slips has a larger audience, and hopefully, we reach out and we teach more people. And it's meant to be enlightenment, Nightlight, but it's also meant to be a teaching show. And it's also, and what I find fascinating is when I get to talk to people, when I'm having a conversation, I have found that every time I have worked with another practitioner, whatever kind of practitioner they were, I found that it enhanced my abilities, and they found the same thing. And so long as your ego isn't there, everybody builds on everybody else's energy, and there is an exchange on a higher level of consciousness than you even realize, so that you open yourself up to, what they have and they share. And Jen Young is a medium that I work with on a pretty regular basis. And one of her gifts is that she smells, and I don't mean she smells, it means that she picks up scent.
Hmm.
And I find that after working with her, I do the same thing. I'm aware of sense to a higher degree, and she gets into past lives because that's something that I love doing. So
Wonderful.
so as long as there's not an ego, I'm better than you, or read my book, or hit my website, or as a matter of fact, I don't ever remember to put out my website.
Hmm.
If somebody wants to find me, they find me.
Hmm.
So, and yet I've done interview shows where whoever was interviewing me, every 15 minutes they were putting out their website and stuff like that. This field is not a field for ego or marketing.
Hmm.
It's
Right.
it's it's a field for growth and enhancement of whatever gifts you've got. And if there's a question or if there's an issue, to seek and find information and help.
Exactly. And one thing I did notice too in the past, they always find you, as you were saying, they always find a way to locate the teacher or whatever they're looking for. So it's usually, you don't really have to advertise. Sometimes it just comes to you. They
And
just
it,
find
it
you.
does. Matter of fact, I changed my website. I took all of the stuff about getting a reading or the PayPal thing. I took all of it. My website is just a teaching site, and that's all it was meant to be, and that's all it is. And
Nice.
people find me if they want me, and that's I truly believe that spirit does send you what you need. And if you're not getting anything, then it's a time for you to be working internally, and it's a time for you to be developing patience, or being creative, or seeking out further insight into your own evolution and development. I mean,
Absolutely.
somebody said God always answers prayers. Sometimes the answer is no, or sometimes the answer is apply later. I mean, it's
That's good.
it doesn't mean, oh darn. My cat is typing again.
That is funny. Oh my gosh. Your cat just typed all that?
Yeah,
What a
she's heavy
crack up.
footed.
You need to play the lotto with those numbers.
Oh, I don't think so. No, I have two new kittens, and they have more energy than I have ever seen, and they're running on either caffeine or adrenaline, or both of them. And
You.
it's well, and I think one of the things about pets, and I've had as many as 9 cats. I have 4 now, and I think there's an energy you get, people who have pets, if they are able to, um, eh, you know, it's sometimes you just can't have a pet, and therefore you're forgiven. But
Hmm.
people who don't have pets are missing something, and it's a very special communication, because dogs, cats, birds, everything except slimy things. I actually was teaching a class, and I told them that there were no snakes or worms in heaven, but I
That's good.
understood. Well, not in my heaven anyhow. So I think there's something about being able to communicate with a pet and having that kind of unconditional love given you,
Hmm.
that is very, very special. And
Oh yeah.
there are a lot of people that choose not to, and that's certainly their choice, but I choose not to really be really close friends with them. So
yeah, I'm an animal person too. Actually, right now my dog and my cat are right here next to me while I'm on here. They get along really well, these two. They're like Mutt and Jeff. But yeah, I agree. There's something about animal energy that's just I can't even describe it. But yeah, they're family.
And it is, they never interrupt you, and they never correct you, and it's all you have to do is feed them and empty their litter box or walk them, and you've got unconditional love, and that's something that's very special.
Mm-hmm.
And
yep.
and when we were talking about ascension and enlightenment, and I think so many people these days feel that is something that you take a workshop in, or you work on, and it at a specific time of day. This is a way of life. This is not something you do just on one day a week, or a 2-hour workshop here and a 2-hour workshop there. This is a way of life, and somehow that has to be gotten across to people. It's not something that you do part-time. It's something that you do full-time.
Yeah, it's almost like spiritual discipline to some degree, or martial arts. It's your lifestyle. You basically change your whole life in resonance with what we call the higher dimensional energies. But it doesn't mean you become a nun or anything like that. It just means that you open up your mind to higher levels of spirituality and consciousness, but also paying attention to what you're involved in from day to day. And once you start resonating with those frequencies and the light goes on, it stays on. I mean, once the DNA starts really opening up and activating, it just keeps going and going and going and keeps ascending. So I mean, it is a lifestyle. There's no doubt about it. It's not one of those tourist things where you just take a class on it and all of a sudden you're enlightened. Well, you know that as well as I do. That's not how it works at all.
No, it's not. I met somebody a while back who she told me that she was a shaman, and I said to her, what persuasion shaman? And she said, I'm a shaman. And I said, oh, okay. Where have you studied? And she said, well, I said, how did you become a shaman? And she said, well, I just took a weekend workshop. And I pulled her aside and I said, I know you feel strongly about what you've learned, and I can tell that it impacted you greatly, but shamans never tell you they're a shaman. Shamans demonstrate their shamanism by their way of life.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, it takes a long time to actually be recognized as a shaman. So I wouldn't flaunt that certificate if I were you.
Yeah, exactly. That's interesting. Well, they have those what they call mass. They used to do the mass Reiki initiations, and I couldn't figure that out for the life of me, how people could get into all that. But because I went through a real discipline when I had initiations in the past, and that was a long time ago. But it seems like they just started doing all this like mass everything, really, really strange. So I'm not sure what people got out of that, whether teachers or not. But yeah, it is a lifestyle. And most of the time people do have a natural healing ability. They usually, in the old days, they used to call it faith healing before they started doing initiations and other healing systems. But nonetheless, people do have gifts. I think it's about, once again, aligning everything, aligning your multidimensional design work, and also understanding how that energy works.
Well, doesn't intent come in there too? I mean, if your intent is to transfer energy for someone to utilize for whatever purpose it is they need it, that there is that giftedness, that unconditionalness to the gift, and oftentimes it always has and always will make me uncomfortable to take money for what I do, but in today's society, people often don't value what they get unless they've paid for it.
I think that's what it is. They take advantage of it. And that's what I've noticed. And that's why, I do actually charge people. But you're charging for your time most of the time. I mean, in my opinion, anyway, you charge for your time, consultations, whatever it is. It's just like anything else. Counselors charge. So, you have to but you don't, like, if people can't afford it, I've always worked with people too. I mean, in a sense that I've had trades done where people bring me something and, incense, whatever, candle, whatever they make. I mean, I've done things like that for people who didn't have much money. So you always work with people on that level, at least I have. But yeah, I think that people need to learn to respect their own gifts, but also respect other people's abilities too. And it is a service to some degree. But I always consider myself the facilitator. It's not my personal energy that they're getting anything connected to me. It's the conduit of energy and what I bring in through the vehicle, through the vessel, that is really affecting them.
That's an amazing point, because I have seen people who have done a couple of Reiki practitioners, especially, who have said they were so drained by doing a session, and I said, I know I spoke to two of them, and I said, it feels like you're using your own vital energy instead of channeling universal energy.
That's right, which means they're not attuned right. Yep.
Yeah,
I agree. You're right.
And it's sort of like, when doing this work, when teaching or reading or channeling, I find that not only am I energized, but I need greasy food to come down from the high so I can actually go to sleep. So
to ground out, yeah.
Yeah. I did a workshop. I was in California demonstrating the cards, and so this goes back almost 30 years. And I always, when I went into a bookstore to work, would say I insist that we do a free meditation the night before I start, so people can see if what I do is something they would like to experience. And I said, and no matter how many people are there, I always make sure everyone gets a message, but don't advertise it, because then I'm going to be swamped. And she had 100. She advertised it, so we had 100 people there.
Wow.
And I started at 7 in the evening, and I finished at 2 in the morning.
Wow.
and afterwards, she said, "Aren't you exhausted?" And I said, "No, I'm not exhausted. I just need a greasy hamburger really badly." and there were other readers there who said, how do you do that? And I said, I just channel the energy, and then it doesn't take up my energy. And it never occurred to me that it was a conscious switch over, and I'm fortunate in that it happens automatically for me. So I guess it is actually a switch you have to throw sometime. I don't know. Do you throw a switch, or does it feels like you do it automatically as well?
Yeah, I do it automatically. Yeah, it's just one of those things, because we are constantly running energy anyway, because I just think that's how we are as a species, or how we're wired in consciousness. But if people get personally drained by energetics by doing healing work, then they've got to, that's not okay. There's something going on there.
They need a reset,
Yes.
and I basically, will say to someone who, because I every now and then am in a place where there are massage therapists and stuff like that, and they just, when one talks about being exhausted, and that massage really exhausted me, it was like, did you ground yourself? Did you see the energy coming through you and going through you and into the ground? Did you see their energy going, did you do anything with the energy? And it was like, no. Should I? And
gosh.
I've never been to massage school, so I don't really know, but it would seem to me that would be a part of the training.
Yeah, I'm not a massage therapist either. That's interesting. Probably not part of the training, Barbara. That's it. There's this, and coming from my martial arts background, we always ground and use qigong and tai chi exercises. I used to wind my group down, because we get really wound up, doing martial arts and taekwondo. And for a grounding, we would do some tai chi qigong for a warm down, and that would reset everybody's energy so that we wouldn't be all strung out going outside, playing Bruce Lee or something. So. Because you get really charged as a martial artist. I mean, when you start sparring and you get into, I was doing competitive kickboxing in the day, and you just get so high in energy. I mean, it's just like you just become this conduit of electricity.
Yeah, well, and I've seen how, especially with the Tai Chi, you can move the energy. I've seen how you can knock somebody off their feet with the energy.
Yeah.
So it's a very real thing that when you are hooked into that universal source, it's amazing what you can do with just a simple flick of the wrist. So that it's now, I've never flipped anybody. I would have liked to try, but I've never actually done it. But I can see how, when you get that energy flowing in you, that if there's a focus to do something with it, to create a ball of energy, to throw it in a direction that you can impact a lot of people or things. One thing I played with a group of people was getting that energy in between the hands and really focusing it into a ball of energy and then throwing it at a gong. And at first, nothing happened, and then suddenly you started to hear, one of these great big, 4 foot in diameter gongs, and after a while, they got it going, and it was amazing to see the expression on their faces that hey, I was just playing, and did I really feel it? I guess I did. And then when I threw it, and there was a response from a gong, it let them know that they had moved the energy, that there was something to this, and to see the light go on inside, that this isn't just a game. This is something that really happens. This is something that you have access to, and it's like a muscle. If you want to develop it and you want to work on it, you can build it into amazing different aspects of life if you want to.
Oh, absolutely. Isn't that cool? Yeah, I used to do something similar. We play with balls of energy back and forth when I was teaching my Tai Chi and Qigong classes. But yeah, and that's another thing too. You start ramping up that universal life force energy. Then you start knowing, unifying the chakras. You start building up light body. Then the light body becomes more and more expanded and more enhanced on a vibrational level. Then you have the Merkaba. I mean, this is what I mean by the progressions of spirit, and it's an infinite amount of energy, because there's infinite amounts of energy in the cosmos. So once you're plugged in, and this is what I mean by we shouldn't get fatigued, because if we're running the energy correctly, we shouldn't feel anything but perfect health.
Exactly. And then, once you get the energy running, then you talk about, distant viewing, and you talk about out-of-body experiences, and you talk about all of these wonderful things that everyone is capable of.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm sure you've had it. I'm sure you've done this, where you've probably done work on somebody and they felt it ahead of time, and the illusion of, or you were going to do an initiation on somebody and they had the initiation maybe 3 or 4 days before.
Yeah.
Yeah, because and then once again, it's that confirmation of how the energy works in the cosmos, because there's no time, there's no distance, it's intent. As soon as we think we're going to do something, we set the stage, we set the intent, we set the parameters, all this celestial energy connects in, and everybody's already receiving what they need before they even do it physically.
Well, and that's why when I talk to people about making a contract with the universe and having an idea inside your head, spirit doesn't know what to do with it. But if you're writing it down, if you put it down on paper, if you put your intent, if you cement it into reality by writing it on a piece of paper, spirit knows what your intent is, will then energize that, will actually energize the words, so that as you work on it, everything is easier.
Yep.
And it's just that so many people don't. Well, I think thinking is the most difficult, is the largest problem for most people, because if you think, then you start to analyze, and if you analyze, you draw it down into the physical to a degree that you cement yourself into the physical reality, and you don't have access to the spiritual.
Right. And I think part of that has to do with the emotional body maybe too enhanced, or the mental body out of control. So I always say, the higher self is what brings in all that divine energy. So allowing for the higher self, which is very centered, to bring in the database of information, and then it just starts to flow. But I think people do overthink stuff all the time. And that's why it's so important to balance the hemispheres, the right and left hemisphere, to make sure that they're synced up in energy, so that you're not being too busy in one area, whether it's overly emotional about an issue, or too much mental body stimulation and things like that.
Do you use the paradiddle to balance the left and right hemispheres?
The way I balance mine, well, I've always done it just through meditation alone. And when I work on people, it's usually it's hands-on, and I just put my hands on them and I balance their hemispheres. I can actually feel the pulse between their right and left hemisphere, and then I can sync them up, and then they're perfect. So, and that was usually one of my specialties back in the day, when I would sync people up and they would feel like they just got shot out of a cannon, because most of the time people's mental bodies are really spun out. They're off balance. And I think, once again, it's this society we live in. It's the entrainment programming, all the things that they're subjected to from day to day. And you're right, because where does the higher self live in that moment, when they're so encompassed in their work or survival or their husbands or their wives? I mean, the higher self is the one that runs the show, the overseer. So I always say and I call it like a soul star too, because it's literally the one that's overseeing everything you're doing on the timeline. And once you're synced up with it and you're bringing it in, well, there's your divinity, there's your inspiration, there's the energy that allows us to write and have the right words and know exactly what to say in alignment with the cosmos.
Absolutely. And so often, thinking, I get in trouble when I think, actually. If I'm reading someone, I know that if I just let it flow, I'm fine. If I try to think and analyze, I get in trouble, because that's when I'm putting my own self into an energy that I'm getting for them, and then that's not smart. Mm-hmm. So I try to really monitor what I say and how I say it, and if I say I feel, or I feel, basically. If I'm feeling something, then I know it's coming from the right place. If I say I think, then I'm thinking, and that's not what you want to get from me, because that limits you to my experience this lifetime. And if I feel, then I'm drawing through time, then I'm drawing through antiquity, then I'm going back into other dimensions and lifetimes, and bringing you a richer part of myself to share with you.
It makes perfect sense. Yeah, I can be kind of cerebral too. I can be super analytical at times, and that's why I like to balance it out through spirit. And I wasn't super analytical until I got pulled into that program, and then I started getting way, way, way machine based. I started getting because of the interface. I'm pretty sure that was part of it. So I was already pretty fast and pretty quick mentally, but then I just got spun quickly. So I have to really reset and allow for that higher self to anchor in, which is pretty easy for me, even through all the weirdness I've been through.
Well, that you survived it and are reasonably sane is an amazing thing, and I say sanity, sane is relative. Certainly, I know that. Certainly, I can't remember when you wrote Transmutation through Ascension. That was one of your first books, wasn't it?
Yeah, that was 2004. That was right before I was pulled into the program. That was my first book. Yep.
It's a great book, everybody.
Thank you.
No, I really, this one has gotten great wear. I should just give the people the book instead of, trying to teach it piecemeal. And I think that's exactly what I'm going to do, because it is a tremendously well-written book, and it goes into all aspects of this ascension process. But you start it, you go back to square one, which is who we are, and empowerment through lifestyle and ways to empower yourself. And, it's beautifully, beautifully done.
Well, thank you so much. Yeah, I love that book, I really do. And I'm really happy that you get a lot out of it. And I hope everybody else does as well. But that's me. I mean, that's my energy. That's how I interpolate data. And, it's interesting because that was pretty much what put me on the mark, I think, for a lot of exotic technology. But they were probably very interested in what I was doing with the DNA activation. So,
have you done a lot of work with past life material?
Not for myself. I mean, I had one regression I had done on me from someone, but I don't do it on others. And if I see something in them, I'll mention it, but I don't try to put any plants or seeds in them. But for myself, I had a very profound experience that I went through a hypnotic regression. I wasn't expecting to see anything, and I wasn't prompted. The woman who did it was very removed. So it was Atlantean, though. It was very interesting with the technology that was going on in the psychic wars, which to me seems like it parallels this dimension to some degree in what we're dealing with here. So that was pretty profound, and it was supposed to have lasted maybe an hour, and we went into like 4.5 to 5 hour regression, which was huge.
That is a huge time.
I was so like an electrical wire afterwards. I mean, I can't even describe it, but I was, I was at the end of where there was an implosion of the city, and that's what I remembered. So I guess it was the most traumatic part that I remembered. But I remember, and then afterwards, when she brought me out of it, I mean, my body was like this drill rod. It was electrical. It was just like this big electricity. I can't even explain it. Very, very profound, though.
That's amazing.
It was pretty strong. So, but in the past, when I was younger, I used to get glimpses of people in other timelines, and I would see them in other, like what looked like a costume, or almost like they were in another incarnation. And I would kind of mention it to them, like I keep seeing you in this outfit, and I see you looking in this timeline. And then they would always say that, yeah, I always felt a resonance with that. So I kind of got, when I was younger, this is when I was in my teens, and I started to do readings for people. I started to realize that I was actually glimpsing something of them on a different timeline or part of their lifetime. So that did come up a lot here and there. And then when I started doing the healing work, a little less of that.
Do you feel that sometimes with healing, though, there are wounds or experiences that just have impacted a lifetime to a degree that they really need to be dealt with this lifetime
Mhm.
before they can have a completedness feeling, so to speak?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Well, they have the cellular trauma. If they didn't resolve their issues, whatever lifetime it was, whether it was on and off planet or in between spaces of lifetimes, yeah, if they didn't resolve that, it's going to be there in the cellular at the cellular level. Sometimes it'll take on an illness in the body or the organs too. So you have to kind of go through each area of the body to see which area feels stuck in energy or which area feels like there's some trauma. And yeah, that does need to be cleared out. Otherwise, it's just going to keep festering and making them obviously, well, not obviously, but sometimes it will make them very, very sick. Or they have to just go in there and actually heal that energy and let that energy be removed etherically, first of all, and then allow it to allow for more flow of higher energies to kind of flush out all that, what I call a toxicity, because to some degree, some of that trauma does store in there and it does create a little bit of a toxicity to the physical body, to the bioelectric
Mhm.
field.
Yeah, and for those listening, we're not talking about, an ingrown toenail type stuff. We're talking about real trauma, um, uh, very traumatic things that usually had to deal with the essence of the death of the person before they came into this lifetime. So,
Mm-hmm.
um, I think that it's not an overstatement that disease is really dis-ease. If there is an element of your life that is you are not easy with, it can create a problem within this lifetime.
Right, and it's usually about frequency too, because whatever that spin point is, or wherever the illness is at the cellular level, or even on the physical scale, it's going to vibrate differently than the rest of the body. And that's how
Mhm.
you can tell also that it's stuck or that there's some trauma there that needs to be healed. And the best way to heal stuff like that is through higher frequencies, as we all know. So, but yeah, definitely gotta clear all that out. And we all go through it each day. I mean, even living on a timeline where we don't even think we're subjected to trauma, we're still getting traumatized, even by some of the things we observe on the internet, for crying out loud. So there has to be a deprogramming to some degree.
Yeah, and you begin to wonder, where does it begin? I mean, we are moving more and more and more into technology, and not everyone, because I do believe that there is a greater number of people who are waking up spiritually than ever before, and moving away from the technology. And I'm not saying they're not using the internet, because of course they are. You and I are. I mean, we both of us are here, and here for a reason, because this is where everybody else is.
But we use it for our advantage or to our advantage, and not to be consumed by it.
No, well, that's true too. I
Mhm.
mean, I have recently learned to text, but I hate it. So, it's to me, it's amazing. It's taking away our the intimacy that we have when we are talking one on one, or in a group of people. It takes away that element of exchange of energies. Now, certainly, if somebody called in and talked to us, there would be an exchange of energy. I mean, the internet is wonderful in that you can pick up the energy of another person,
Mhm.
um, while online and stuff like that. It's not that it's impossible, but the reality here is that the one-on-one that is so important is not being fulfilled, and people are becoming more and more isolated to a certain degree.
I agree. And then, when you leave your suit in the illusion of when we transfer out, the energy signature is there. I mean, who you are. So it's really important to be in tune to that signature and understand what it is, how to navigate in it, and also how to navigate with others. Because the suit is just like I said, it's a suit. It is what it is. But yeah, it's important that people understand the benchmark of spirituality and frequency and vibration, the natural vibration and harmonics versus the manufactured synthetic.
Oh, there's such a difference.
Yeah.
There is such a difference, and it's sort of like, we're coming to a time here where so many people are looking for the answer, and there's so many very polished marketing people out there that are selling stuff that just won't work,
hmm
and it's frightening. It really is. I mean, I get offended sometimes by people who come. I had a lady come, and she said, She came for a reading and she said, I shouldn't have to come to you. And I said, okay. And she whipped out this folder and no lie, had to have 30 or 40 certificates. She said, see how well trained I am. Why am I in such a mess? And I looked at her portfolio of certificates and I said, well, if you really were all that you supposedly are because you have the certificates, you probably would have ascended, way above body long before this. And I said, a certificate doesn't prove anything. It proves that you had the money to buy the paper, and that's about it.
Right, yeah, that they took a class and well, it's just like regular college too, or a PhD or whatever. I mean, it is what it is. It's a piece of paper and it proves you went to college, right?
Yep.
And how you operate, what you learn from it is another scenario.
I have enough certificates to choke a horse. And Patrick used to say your compass vitus would choke a horse. And that's true. But nothing I learned in school, and I have, the bachelor's and 2 master's degrees, not anything I learned there had anything to do with what I do now.
Amazing. Yeah.
And somebody asked what my academic background was, and I shot it to them, and all I got back was, wow. Yeah, but it has nothing to do. Your spiritual evolution has to do with how you're living your life. And you don't have to pay money for classes. All you have to do is understand the golden rule, for gosh sakes, and start living according to that. It's work.
Absolutely.
I would say it's harder work than you can imagine. Try sitting for an hour. Try living your life for an hour, and I don't mean in bed with the covers over your head, but try going out and for an hour not being judgmental.
And shadowing yourself too. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it takes effort. It takes reprogramming yourself to look at life differently. And once you start reprogramming yourself to look at life differently, life becomes enhanced and more vibrant because you're embracing what is there instead of judging it.
Right. It's self-discipline. And also, since I was little, I was always reading books. I'm sure most people do read, but it seems to me like I was always educating myself in one form or another, always doing something, studying, doing something on a different level, which didn't encompass anything that was mainstream in education or anything like that. So, yeah, it's a life experience. You just learn and grow and evolve as you do, and we learn by doing, not by observing or being voyeurs, but literally getting out there, rolling up our sleeves and interacting, and just going with it.
Oh, Jay, and the other element that is fun to do is the random acts of kindness. I mean, it's so much fun to compliment somebody in the grocery store for the color they're wearing and telling them how pretty they look and then moving on. And knowing that you can literally, if you get practiced, if you understand energy, if you pay attention to how things flow and how people radiate, you can see their aura change and a sense of joy come over their face.
Absolutely.
And that's an amazing experience and doesn't cost you anything, by the way, either. So it's sort of like, try the simple things, try to turn around, try to reprogram yourself to be more loving and kind. And that doesn't mean that you begin to, not stick up for yourself or anything like that. It means that there's a sense of self-empowerment that's going on here. And don't go rob a bank. But it feels to me as though the lessons, the ascension process, growing and expanding into the light that is within you is definitely work, and it takes time, and it takes application, and it takes dedication, and it takes intent. It takes a lot, but the benefits you get from it are so spectacular that it's unbelievable.
It brings enlightenment too, and with enlightenment comes more inspiration, and it is kind of osmosis too, because once you start resetting your own spiritual battery, it emanates everywhere else. It radiates to other people, as you were saying. Random acts of kindness. That's so true, and then the energetic exchange associated with that is very, very powerful. There's no doubt about it.
And what the other part is that I love with all of this stuff is that you begin to, I've been at this for over 50 years, and you've been at it for a long time too. And the wonderful, exciting part about all of this is that you come to a time where you think, okay, I've seen it all, and I know it. I have glimpses of it, and I know, and I often say I know a little about a lot, enough to get in trouble. And the reality here is that the further you expand, the further you grow, the more you find to learn. It never ends. It's just
Exactly.
the coolest thing ever. There is always something else that is going to sit you back on your heels and say, well, damn, I never even saw that. And I mean, when the emerald tablets came on my radar, I was shocked. That all of that was out there and I never knew about it. And here I've been in this field for so long, and every now and then there's another hint. And what's so exciting is that spirit does it. It gives you a tidbit here and a tidbit there, and then suddenly once you're on the hook, then it's an amazing journey, because then you are expanding your frame of reference to a greater degree so that you have so much more to share with other people.
Exactly. Yeah, it's interesting how that unravels right before our eyes. As soon as we start learning one thing, it's just like a chain reaction. Something else comes in and then something else. But yeah, and it's all about energy too. Once again, it's almost like a geometric pattern that you just keep absorbing each piece of the pattern into your cells and your atoms and your DNA, and it just keeps going and going and going. But yeah, it's fascinating. It is quite a journey. When we start to look and see what the real journey is behind all this craziness and the false matrices, then you start seeing the real picture behind it all. It's a fascinating scene. It's really, really infinite and incredible. And yeah, I've just touched a glimpse. I mean, I feel like I've learned an awful lot and I know an awful lot, but I just have a glimpse of things. There's so much more.
Yeah, and you get to the point where I keep saying, oh gosh, there's so much to kind of assimilate and grow into, and is there enough time? And then I get the message back, there's always enough time. Don't sweat that stuff, just enjoy the trip. And I do believe that that's the message. I do believe that there are teachers, wise people that are here on the planet every lifetime that are there to sort of titillate people, to drop crumbs and say, okay, follow the crumbs and find the cake. And nobody ever says, well, do you have the cake? And the reality is, no, I don't have the cake. I'm following my own crumb trail.
That's so true, isn't it?
Somebody once said to me, what do your followers think about, all the stuff that you're involved in? And my answer was, I would be horrified if anybody was following me, because I don't know where I'm going.
That's that's a very, very good. Yeah, it's true. They should be their own leader. It's okay to inspire people, but yeah, hopefully they're not the lemmings that are.
Well, I have changed my philosophy so many times over the years that I would be horrified to think that anybody, I can give you my philosophy on something today, but check with me tomorrow. It may have changed.
Well, that's because everything's in flux, though. That makes sense, that everything is in vibratory flux. So it might change the dynamic. It may be a different signature tomorrow, or even from day to day, from moment to moment.
Yeah, that's the dangerous thing. It's but the concept of, we have within us a perfect spirit that is traveling through the space-time continuum, and you don't really know exactly where it's been. It's kind of, I was doing past life readings on people one night, and it was on freedom slips, and when I got to this one particular lifetime for the guy, I said, that's really strange. And he kept saying, go on. I said, no, this is weird. And he said, go on. I said, you're a green blob, actually. and I said, I said, you're not a solid blob. You're a translucent blob. You're pure energy. And you're in an atmosphere and an environment in which this is the form that you needed to take to experience this particular lifetime. And he said, yeah, I've seen that. And I thought, either he's crazy or I am, because, but
Interesting. Yeah. Well, if he saw it, then that's, obviously you're hitting something right there.
Yeah, he said he had dreamt of it often, and it was and yeah, I kind of went back afterwards and tried to reconnect, and it was definitely there was intelligence in the blobs. They were communicating. There was, and I don't know if I was down at a cellular level or if it was bigger than that or what. It was his past life, but
Wow.
it was fascinating because
Mm-hmm.
there was intelligence, there was interaction, that was their form for that particular dimensional place and time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's very interesting. It sounds like you've been really piercing some multidimensional veils. There's no doubt about that.
Oh
Most people
yes.
wouldn't pick up on that. Most people wouldn't, they'd get the regular stuff.
Well, you do it enough, you have to, stretch beyond, I guess.
Hmm. Oh yeah.
But so tell me, just out of curiosity, have you seen Interstellar?
I don't think I have. Wait a second. Is that the one where he goes to the wormhole in the end? Wait a second.
Yeah.
Okay, I did see it. I did see it on YouTube. I think I saw it. I didn't see it at the theater though,
Well,
but it was good.
I think the best line in the whole book was, um, they kept talking about them, and the realization came that we are them, and
Hmm.
that we truly are in that in that we are a part of that particular dimension as well, and that in this dimension we have the physicality to impact our reality, and in other dimensions there is not a physicality, so that there is just the wisdom, and in order to make changes and shifts you have to connect to a part of you that is in a physical reality in order to orchestrate that.
Hmm. Yeah, it makes perfect sense as we exist multidimensionally simultaneously. Yep, absolutely. And of course, as we exist with these soul extensions, permeating in these other multiple dimensions, you have other species out there, which makes perfect sense that we would be interconnected with many, many races and species. That's why I've always said too that we're star beings, that we're very vast, infinite beings, and to be lied or slept into a false matrix like mankind has been, no more. It has to be ripped away.
Well, I don't know that we're going to rip it away, but I think it's going piecemeal. I think
Mm-hmm.
we're shredding it to a certain degree, and the more that people wake up, I often have said in some of my forecasts for the future and stuff, have said that the masses are waking up, and I spoke all last year about the masses waking up and the masses becoming aware, and the masses not not slumbering in their apathy. And one of the phrases that came out of one of them was, if you slumber, they will plunder. And that's exactly what happened.
Mm-hmm.
So, I am so delighted that there was a shift, that the expected did not happen, that
Mm-hmm. Me too.
we are on unplowed territory, so to speak. So it's going to be fascinating to see how all of this comes out. I keep seeing somebody juggling in the balls of being in the air. That the future isn't written. It really is in transition itself. So that
Mm-hmm.
I think humanity took a turn, and it was a good turn. So
Yep.
that it's all up to us. It's all up to people paying attention and not going back to sleep.
I
Because
agree. And
this,
it's like we're heading towards the light. Yep. I think that we are in a good direction, even though there's turbulence right now, but that's to be expected as people let go of their own false, paradigms and programming. But yeah, I agree with you. I think we're in for some interesting times, but I think we have some great potential to make some phenomenal leaps in consciousness as a group and as a race if people step up.
oh, I totally agree. I think we were at a crossroads that humanity took a turn that nobody expected,
Mm-hmm.
and and uh, and I don't think it has to do entirely with the presidency. I think it has to do with the consciousness of mankind.
Mm-hmm. I agree.
So
Yep.
that no matter what happens, I'm sure humanity will survive. I don't think that we are. But it's funny. I think that this kind of a reality will become history, will be discarded at some point down the line.
Mm-hmm.
That the physicality is something that at some point in time, maybe thousands and thousands of years in the future or another dimension, that the physicality won't be necessary anymore.
Right. Well, that's what the light body or the beings of light, bodies of light in another multiverse. I mean, I know there are other worlds out there that are much more suitable for me. I can only speak for myself, but yeah, I'm looking forward to other areas in the cosmos. That's I want to keep journeying and keep growing and evolving, and I don't believe we have to die physically to do that. And that's part of the ascension process as well, that we can take our bodies with us through the light body and converting it, and also being able to navigate through consciousness and multidimensionally through phase shifting. So, imagine that. Imagine the frequencies calibrated to such a level with each body that we can actually do that without corporate control, without government control or religious control. That's really what I think we as a race are supposed to be doing.
Oh, I agree with you. And while it may not be this lifetime, it does feel like it's something that I feel that I remember. Mm-hmm. So it's something that spiritually has been done before, and that means it can be done yet again. And that we're on cycles, while we're on cycles here in the human lifespan and stuff like that, I do believe that spiritually there is a cycle as well that is probably far greater than what we experience here, but that there is a greater awakening. Oh, shoot. Thank you, Solaris, so much. This has been such fun.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for having me, Barbara. It's been an honor and a pleasure.
I will talk to you about the other thing, too.
Okay, great. Yes, absolutely.
Take care now.
Hey, Deb. Thank you, everybody.